This is episode 69, part 2 of In Hindsight, the division-by-division breakdown, preview, predictions, going into the 2022 NFL season. We just finished with NFC. Check that out on the channel. It is uploaded on the YouTube channel, the NFC one. This is AFC. So, this is obviously uploaded. I'm uploading both on the same day. So, whichever ones, you guys want to tune into or, certain parts of each one you want to see, I always appreciate your guys' support. So, again, a thank you, as I always like to start my shows. Just thank you guys because all my listeners and followers on the channel are greatly appreciated. And I'm thankful for each and every one of you. So, truly thank you. Before we get going here, I know I usually kind of say this before and after, or sometimes one or the other every show. If you guys want to follow me on my socials, it is in the link below. You guys can follow any one of those to keep up with anything on the channel. If you guys would hit the thumbs up and the subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it because it just helps grow the channel, helps reach out more sport fans. And it doesn't matter what fan of sports you are, what team you're a fan of, you're always welcome here. It's all about good discussion and sport debate, topics, things like that. And my goal on this show, and I like I said this even in the previous episode on part 1, and I say it pretty much every show, what my goal is of this channel, and I like to keep pushing that out there because I know you guys hear it every episode. And you guys know what we want to do here. But those who are new to the channel, I want to know what we want to do here. And this isn't just my show. This is a show I want to incorporate my followers, my listeners into as well. Whenever I record, and that is a show you guys can look forward to, a show you guys can look forward to being involved in, being a part of. And I would love nothing more than that. And for that to happen, I have to keep growing this. So I thank you to all who are new, all you who have been here. And let's just keep growing this thing, man. And I'm glad to be back on a consistent schedule. We are going to be doing on the show Fridays, Saturdays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. I know I know this is being uploaded on a Wednesday, but I have to do this before the season starts. So, and there will be times where maybe at certain points during the week where I'm not scheduled to post anything, where I will, and that's why it's obviously a good thing to follow my social media channels, etc., etc. But AFC division by division breakdown, preview, predictions, that's what we're doing here. And so we're following up. This is part 2, folks. This is part 2. And let's start off with the AFC West. Let's start off with the AFC West, the most difficult, most unpredictable division, and the most intriguing, I think, division in all of the NFL right now. And you could literally put all 4 teams in this division in a hat, pick one to win it, pick one to finish last, and, there's really, at the end of the day, it's like you wouldn't be surprised. It's crazy how much better this division got this offseason. So, let's start off with the Chargers. I'm picking the Chargers to win this division. I think this is the year they finally take that step. We've seen the Chargers the last 2 years. They haven't taken that leap. They were close to getting the playoffs last year. They didn't. I think they take that leap this year. If they don't work out this year, if they finish in last, if they're under 500, if they're whatever, Brandon Staley might have to go. Because if you're not cutting it with this talent, I don't know what to tell you. The Chargers have a great offensive line. The Chargers have a quarterback in Justin Herbert, who is a potential MVP candidate this year and is having a terrific start to his career. You look at the guys that they have offensively is one of the best, I think, in the NFL. You look at defensively, the guys they brought in, Khalil Mack. You look at J.C. Jackson. You look at Asante Samuel, who's entering his second year. They got they obviously got Joey Bosa. They got playmakers on that defense. Now, I don't think this defense is going to be a top 5 defense, but I think it's a defense that will obviously make a difference. I think it will be a defense that is going to be, I don't know where to rank this defense at. I really don't. And obviously you got a guy like Derwin James back there, who's one of the best safeties in the league. I don't really know where to put this defense at, man. And they did also sign Bryce Callahan as well to play in the slot. You know, he hasn't been too bad through his career. I don't know where to rank this defense. I don't think it's a top 5 type defense necessarily. It's a defense where you got studs on it, 100%. But I don't view it as a defense in the sense of certain positions that, like, if you look at their front 7, right? I don't view their front 7 as necessarily a top unit necessarily in the NFL right now. I view it as a solid unit. I view their secondary as a solid unit, but there's better units out there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those better units are going to finish as, their top defenses, respective defense, or anything like that. It's hard to say. Like, I feel like their defense can, in certain categories, be a top defense. Maybe in certain categories, kind of just be in the middle somewhere. Their offense is obviously the strongest part of their team, and we know is the focal point of their team. We know this. Their defense, though, on the other hand, is still very strong, obviously got a lot better, and I think because of the moves they did, when I look at their schedule, whenever they have to face the Chiefs, when they have to face Vegas, when they have to face their division, when they have to face some other offensive heavy teams, that's when their defense is going to come into play. And like I said, I don't think this is a top 5 defense necessarily, but it's still a defense I think that can be very strong, and make plays and be a defense that can be a great balance or a great opposite of their offense and trying to be a Super Bowl type contender type team. Maybe that maybe that's a little bit confusing. I don't know. I don't know what to say about their defense, man. We have to wait and see really how everybody plays together. There's obviously some durability and health issues on certain guys that are key parts of that defense. But nonetheless, I think really how I want to put it is, I feel like I'm spending too much time on this, but how I want to put it is they made some great moves in the offseason adding to it. It did need to get better in certain areas, and they did get better in said areas. I think for me, their defense is more wait and see. As long as guys can stay healthy, it will definitely do its job. I don't know. I don't want to rank them as like a top 10 type defense right now. I like other defenses better, but I still like their defense. I think their defense can definitely be a middle of the pack type defense for sure. But be more top, be more as a top type defense in certain categories, if that makes sense. But nonetheless, I have the Chargers winning 12 games. I think this team's very talented. I think they're one of the best rosters in the NFL. And that's the thing. If Brandon Staley just cannot get this right, he should not be the coach. I'm sorry. It's not saying the Chargers need to win the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl. It's more that the Chargers need to win their division, need to win key divisional games, and find themselves in a good spot for the playoffs. I think really that's a successful season for the Chargers this year. And they just have a lot of talent. They really, really do. And I think that this is the year that they overtake the Chiefs and unseat them as AFC West champions, because the Chiefs have been winning the division for this last several years. But they have a lot on their team to be excited about, man, if you're a Chargers fan. They really do. I have them winning 12 games. I could veer back to 11, but I think they're around there looking at their schedule. As long as they stay healthy, I think that they can reach that mark, and that's where I'm going to put them at. At 2, we're sticking Kansas City, man. I'm not doubting Patrick Mahomes. I'm not doubting Kansas City. We know Kansas City lost a few guys defensively. They lost Tyreek Hill. So they might have a little bit of a different feel, but I think that he's the best quarterback in the league. They still got talent on offense. They got a solid offensive line. And their defense, I'm not particularly necessarily crazy about, but I still think it's a defense that can kind of be just do enough for the offense, I think is what the defense can do. And they're going to put up points. They got Juju Smith-Schuster now in there from the Steelers, and this is definitely the best spot for him. This is a great opportunity for him on a 1-year contract to maximize himself, to get back to where he was as a receiver, playing with the best quarterback in football. They signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a speed guy, help open up the field. You still got Travis Kelce in there. You got Mecole Hardman in there. I think you're going to see a different utilization of the running backs with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Picaro, and Jerick McKinnon. I have them finishing second. I think I have them winning 10 games. I think they could maybe push 11. I think between them and the Chargers, it's going to probably be about a game and a half difference. I think at 3, I have the Raiders. I'm big on the Raiders this year. Not saying I'm big on them as if I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I'm big on them as being better than last year also, and really showing they're here. They're here to stay here for quite a while, and Derek Carr seems to be getting as the years go on. He seems to be getting better to me as each year goes on. They bring in Josh McDaniels, who I think is a good offensive coach for that offense. They trade for Devontae Adams, which is a huge get for that offense. Defensively, I think they're pretty underrated with guys. So again, with this division, it's the key part of this division is obviously going to come through the divisional games. But the Raiders, I think they're going to be very fun to watch. I think they're going to be a top-scoring offense this year. I think they're going to have a defense to help offset their offense. And I think you're going to see that. I think they're going to be one of the more consistent teams in the NFL this year. So I have them finishing third with 10 wins with Kansas City. Both of them, I have them in the playoffs either way. So however you want to intermingle that. But Raiders are definitely taking it a step further from last year, and that's what they needed to do, and they're doing that. Denver, I have them finishing fourth. The reason why I have them finishing fourth is just because I think the other 3 teams are better, and I think when it comes to divisional games, Denver's going to have the, they're going to be ones that fall short. First-year new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, comes from Green Bay. You've got Russell Wilson now. Russell Wilson hasn't been that good the last couple years. He's in a new situation, so this might be what he needs. Offensive line's a little better than what he had in Seattle. It's not great, but it is what it is. He's got some young talent on offense. Defensively, they have some young guys with Surtain, and they got Justin Simmons back there. They got let's pull up Denver's depth chart here. Let's pull up their depth chart. Let's look. Give me 1 second. I think division-wise, when you look at the AFC West, I think obviously the best quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, but you got a guy like Justin Herbert, who's a top 5 guy, in my opinion. You got a guy like Derek Carr, who's, I think, a borderline top 10 quarterback. He's getting better as each year goes on. You got a guy like Russell Wilson, who I still think is a back-end top 10 quarterback. He's still a winner. I think when it comes to offense, the Chargers have the best offense in terms of on paper. Well, not even necessarily on paper. You saw what they did last year, too. I think they have the best offense in the division, and that's not saying the other offenses are bad. The other offenses, I think, can be right there with them, but I think the Chargers will easily have a top 10 offense this year, and when you look defensively, I think probably the Chargers or maybe Denver have the best defense out there, but at the end of the day, with the way the NFL is, you got to be able to score points at the same time, and Denver, I feel like, is a team, to me, they have the weakest offense, and it's not saying that their offense is bad. I think that their offense, with Russell Wilson there, they have a guy like Jared Jeudy who hasn't come into his own yet. You got Courtland Sutton, who has kind of been up and down. You got a new tight end. Your offensive line's and defensively, let's look at their defense. You got Bradley Chubb. They still have Malik Reed on here. He was traded to the Steelers. They got Pat Surtain, who had a great rookie year. They have Ronald Darby, Kareem Jackson, who still balls, Justin Simmons, Kawan Williams, also is another corner. They have, there's obviously some guys I'm unfamiliar with, but DJ Jones at nose tackle, we'll kind of see how some of the other guys do. But their defense isn't bad. I think out of all of them, I think probably between the Chargers and maybe Denver might be up for the best defense in that division. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to the divisional games in this division. And that's why I say you can pull any of these teams out of a hat and pick and choose that way on who wins the division, because it's so tight-knit and all 4 teams are going to be very competitive with each other as long as they stay healthy. But I'm picking Denver to finish last because I like the upside of the other 3 teams more so going into this year. I think there's more to offer with those teams than what Denver has. Denver's got a first-year head coach. We'll, got to wait and see really how that goes with Russell Wilson. And I think offensively, those 3 teams are going to be able to be more productive offensively, get more points on the board in those divisional games, then maybe Denver might be able to. And it's not, and this isn't saying that Denver's not, I still think Denver's offense is going to kind of be middle of the pack a little bit. But I think that they'll have a good balance of a roster on both sides of the ball throughout the year. But I have them winning 9 games. I think 9-8 right there. I'm giving the upper hand to the other teams in the division right now in their divisional games. And I think really that's going to be a big setter of this division is who wins these divisional games at the end of the day. So I got Denver with 9 wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they reach 10, maybe 11, and maybe one of those other teams hit 9. I wouldn't be surprised, but this is just how I perceive it, and it's hard to choose. But I think from what I've seen from these offenses, what each team has done in the offseason, I feel like other than with Russell Wilson, I don't really think Denver's done too much. And it's not that they necessarily really had to do a ton anyway, because they have already guys on the roster that they hope to elevate their game now with Russell Wilson. But I just think those other teams are ahead of them right now. And I think in terms of upside and what all the teams can do, I think the other 3 are going to outrace them. Going on to the AFC, what do we do? We did the AFC West. Let's go on to the AFC South. So the AFC South, the most boring division in football. We have the Indianapolis Colts, the Titans, who won the division last year in the last 4 or 5 years. We have the Houston Texans, who are going to be arguably the worst team in football. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars with new head coach Doug Peterson. I'm taking the Colts to win this division. Not by much. I'm not big on the Matt Ryan train with the Colts. I'm not. I don't really think Matt Ryan's going to give them much of a difference in terms of offensive production than what Carson Wentz gave them last year. I think if Carson Wentz took the Colts to the playoffs last year, he would still be on the team. They lost to Jacksonville. All they had to do was beat Jacksonville, and they would have been in, and they did not do that. Like I said before, Carson Wentz also is just kind of a liability-type quarterback. Matt Ryan, at this stage of his career, he's really, I think he's kind of a shell of himself a little bit. I don't think that Matt Ryan coming in is going to really change the Colts. I really don't. I'm picking them to win the division with 10 wins. They won 9 last year. I'll give them an extra win with Matt Ryan. I like them defensively. Their defense is obviously going to be the one that keeps the offense in games, I think. I just don't view Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's just not going to be a guy that's going to be able to drive him down the field the way he used to back in Atlanta. He's not, and he's still a smart quarterback. But in terms of his abilities and what he's doing on the field as he's aged and stuff, he's not that guy. And it's not saying that he's not going to be productive anymore or anything like that. I still think Matt Ryan will have a decent year and still show some production that he can still play a little bit. But I don't think that there's a big upgrade with Matt Ryan over Carson Wentz, honestly. So I'll give him 10 wins because I think the Titans got a little worse. And it's an easier division, and I think the Colts defense is going to be pretty strong. So I'm going to give them 10. And the Colts got a strong offensive line and a strong run game, which is going to help Matt Ryan a lot. It's going to help open that field a little bit. Matt Ryan, like I said, he's a smart quarterback. I don't think he's going to turn over the ball a ton. I think offensively the Colts could be a little better with what they have, but they have some young talent there that Matt Ryan, I think, can help them grow. But the defense is going to be the carrier of the team. And the defense is going to carry them for however long they can. And Matt Ryan will just kind of help take it. He's just got to take advantage, I think, a lot. Don't turn over the ball. Just be competent. And I think the Colts can win 10 games that way. I really do. And it's not a knock on Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's had a really good career. But with him being, what is he now, 36, 37? He's not the quarterback he was in Atlanta anymore, obviously, and I just don't think in terms of where he's at in his career that there's much of a difference with him or Carson Wentz, who's ever in there for the Colts. But because the basis of the division, I'm going to give the Colts 10 wins and win the division. With Tennessee, I have Tennessee at 2. I have them winning 8 games. I'm not big on Tennessee this year. Maybe some of you guys are still strong on them. I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee won this division either. They could win 10 games, sure. I'm a big fan of Derrick Henry, but I'm not big on Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill, his first couple years in Tennessee was really it, and the last couple years have Because how many years is this now? I think he came to Tennessee in 2018, I believe, right? Didn't he? And he started. So 2019, 2020, 2021. So this is like his fourth, fifth year starter for Tennessee now. And last year wasn't good, especially come the playoffs wasn't good. But he's been a capable quarterback. He's been a pretty above average quarterback, I think, for his tenure in Tennessee. And I think he's going to kind of be that again. I think he's going to kind of be like average a little bit this year. Aside from Derrick Henry, there's going to have to be guys that step up. Because with A.J. Brown gone, you got Treylon Burks, who you drafted. But they're going to have guys that step up. And we'll see if they have that or not. Mike Vrabel has done a really good job so far in his coaching career. Defensively, Harold Landry, they lost for the year, which sucks for them. But they still got guys. They still got Simmons out there. They got Kevin Byard. They have some young corners out there. So it's going to be important for them to win those divisional games as well to try to keep up with the Colts. Like I said, I don't think the Colts are going to win it by much. I think by a game or two the Colts win. I think Tennessee, I have them at 8. Maybe they could push 9. But Derrick Henry's got to stay healthy too. But I just don't know. I don't really have the faith in Ryan Tannehill to get them back to that point right now, and especially with kind of where they're at offensively. We'll wait and see. But 8 wins is where I have them. I think 9 is probably the primary target, but I have them at 8 going through their schedule. At third place, we're going Jacksonville. I have them 6-11 with 6 games, which obviously is better than last year. I definitely think you're going to see a lot of improvement from them. Though they might not win a lot of games, I think you're going to see a lot of improvement. I think you're going to see players motivated. I think you're going to see 10 times better leadership than what they had last year with Urban Meyer gone. Doug Peterson, I think, is the right coach for Trevor Lawrence for that team. He's a good leader. He's a champion. He is an offensive mind, and I think with Trevor Lawrence having that now, that's going to help him jump into year 2. This is a big year for him. They spent money on Christian Kirk. They have Travis Etienne back after him missing the year. James Robinson. They have I know Marvin Jones is still there. Let's look at the Jacksonville Jaguars depth chart here. Let's see. So, we are looking at, we know they signed Zay Jones in the offseason. They signed Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's kind of been a failure in his career, in my opinion. But him being in Jacksonville might do him better. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a nice year. Trevor Lawrence, we know what he's capable of doing. We know what ceiling he has. We know his potential and what he's capable of doing. He didn't do that last year's rookie year. He had a lot of problems with the coach. The locker room was a mess. There was a lot of stories coming out of Jacksonville, and it was just a hard situation. I think with him, leader, maturity with Doug Peterson, he's got some talent. Could be better, but he's got some talent to work with to build off this year. Defensively also, you got Josh Allen. They draft Devin Lloyd. They draft Trayvon Walker. Both them in the first round. They got Shaq Griffin there at corner. Rashawn Jenkins, who's kind of come along. So they have guys as well that can play defensively, but they're not there yet. They're going in the right direction with what they did in the offseason, what they did with their personnel. They're not there. I think if you give Jacksonville, give them another offseason next year, give Doug Peterson an offseason, you're going to see, I think, leaps in the next year or two, but they're not there right now. And I think 6 wins is where they're at, but they're going to take a nice leap, and you're going to see a lot better things come out of them this year. And finishing in last place, you got who's going to be the worst team in the league this year is the Houston Texans at 2-15. Davis Mills is the starter once again. He had a pretty good second half last year of the season. I think the Texans are really going to be able to see what they have in him after this year. Now, again, with Davis Mills also, he's kind of been like a project type guy, but I think, not even what I think, what they saw out of him last year, they wanted to give him another opportunity as a starter this year, especially with where they're at as a franchise. Brandon Cooks is still there. Damian Pierce is the new running back there. They have Lovie Smith, moved him to head coach, which I thought it was just really stupid of them firing freaking everybody was up in arms about them firing Dave Coley last year, which was ridiculous. I mean, what do you want the guy to do with the freaking roster he has? Absolutely ridiculous. And the Texans, I believe, are going to go hire Josh McCown, who has never coached a single thing in the NFL in his life just because he's a former quarterback. So, but there's a lot of pressure there to not do that, and a lot of stuff with minority stuff. So, Lovie Smith is the coach this year. I believe Lovie Smith this will probably be his one, maybe two, maybe he'll be back next year too. But the Texans just aren't a good team. They don't have a lot of talent. They have some talent, like they have a few guys. Let's pull up their roster real quick. They have a few guys that are obviously pretty solid players, but from an overall standpoint, like, they just don't really have talent, and they're just in a rebuilding situation, man. Like, we know when they had Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt and all those guys like that in 2017 through 2019, they had a few years of success. And even before Deshaun Watson, like back when they had Matt Schaub back in the late 2010s or early 2010s, stuff like that, they had some success there. But they're just a mess of an organization also with the stuff that's tied into Deshaun Watson. And they've been in a rebuilding situation the last 2 years. They're still in that, and they're still going to be in that for quite a while. So Davis Mills is your starter. Dameon Pierce, like I said, your running back. You got Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, young receiver, who knows? Philip Dorsett, nothing special there. You got Justin Britt there on the line. You got Jeremy Tunsil. I'm not really too familiar with the other guys. But they have Malik Collins on the defensive line. They got Jerry Hughes, who I believe, this is, how old's Jerry Hughes now? He's 34 now. So Jerry Hughes has had a pretty good career when he spent it. He was with the Colts early, but he had a lot of years with Buffalo. And, Jerry Hughes wasn't, Jerry Hughes was not anything in the sense of special or elite or anything like that, but he was always he's kind of really been an average player through his career, but he's been a guy where if you're a team that's going to start him on the line or something like that, he can give you something. But, he was pretty productive for Buffalo from 2013, I want to say, through 2018, and then kind of dropped off. But so they have him. So, I mean, he's just kind of a veteran guy. Really not much to it. And then let's see who else they got here. Let's see. Steven Nelson. I didn't realize Steven Nelson's a cornerback on that team. It seems like he's trying to revive his career there. Jalen Petrie, who I believe is a rookie. They have Desmond King, who they signed to a one-year deal, I believe, and then they drafted Derek Stingley. There's not much there, man. They're not a good team. They don't have really much talent on their roster. And with them, they've been in a rebuild the last couple years, and they're continuing with that. And I don't really see much light at the end of the tunnel right now for them. But, a couple years can change a lot of things when you're in a rebuild too. But Derek Stingley is a promising player for them at corner. Jalen Petrie, another guy that they drafted. They have, I'm not too familiar with some of the other guys on here. They drafted Kenyon Green on the offensive line. Doesn't look like he's starting though. So there's not a lot there. I think I have them winning 2 games, and being the worst team in the league. There's just not much good talent there. So they're still in the rebuilding process, and they'll continue to be in that for quite a while, I think. But that's how we're going to leave the AFC South. Let's go in the AFC North. No, I take that back. Let's go to the AFC East. I'll leave the AFC North for last. Let's go to the AFC East. I got the Buffalo Bills winning 14 games, going 14-3. I was thinking maybe 13, but I'm just as high on the Bills, I think, just as really everybody else. They've done a great job over the last few years of building their roster, getting better each year. Sean McDermott's a great coach and has really helped turn that franchise around. They don't really have any weaknesses, folks. They really don't. And just because a team is a complete team, or because that they're the best team in the NFL record-wise, we know obviously that doesn't mean that they're going to win a championship or anything like that, because a lot of, it comes to the playoffs any given Sunday. But I think Buffalo's going to have the best record in the league this year. They're going to win the East by a landslide, I think. And they're going to be the team in the AFC this year that they didn't have last year. Last year, the AFC was just a pond of solid, competitive teams that really most of them could play any given week, and who knows who would win. That's where I think the NFC is for the most part. The AFC, I think this year, I think you're going to see Buffalo, and you have, I think, a handful of a lot of other solid teams. I think you're going to see Buffalo. You're going to see the Chargers as to where I have them. I'm pretty high on them this year. And you're going to have a group of other solid teams in the AFC. I just think Buffalo's going to be that team in the AFC this year that's the cream of the crop, above the bunch. There's just not much else to say, man. It's just how they are. They've just done a great job structuring their team, developing and building their team over the last few years. So you got to give them credit on that. I have them winning 14. Finishing second, I got the Miami Dolphins winning 10. I could see 9. I'm not pushing past 10. I think they've done I think it's going to do good for Tua, bringing in another offensive coach. We'll kind of see how he does. I'm not big on Tua either myself. But I think he'll be a little better than last year. I think Miami, they've kind of been in that 9-10 win purgatory last few years, haven't been able to get in the playoffs. You had Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, you had Chase Edmonds. Defensively, they added I know they added a few guys defensively in the offseason. I'm kind of blanking out on them. Let's check. Let's check. Because I don't want to forget anybody. I know I'm blanking out on a few guys they added on their defense this offseason. So we know that. So yes, they added Teron Armstead left tackle, which is pretty big. So their offensive line's not that bad. We know that. But having Jalen Waddle, you add Tyreek Hill, which is huge. Mike Gesicki at tight end. You got Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert at running back. You know, they'll probably intermingle those guys. And then Tyreek Hill. They also got Cedric Wilson Jr. from the Cowboys. Now, defensively, you got Christian Wilkins, right? You have Jalen Phillips, right? They add Melvin Ingram. They have Xavier Howard as top 5 cornerback. Brandon Jones at safety. Javon Holland, who's making a name for himself. They have some young talent defensively. Their defense isn't special by any means, but I think when it comes to the landscape of the AFC, and this is why I could see Miami maybe winning 9. I could see Miami from anywhere from like maybe 8 games to 10. But I have them at 10 after going through their schedule. I think they're favorable in a handful of them. I think also being some divisional games as well in the AFC East will help them with some of their wins. But offensively, they got guys that can produce. They got guys that can score some points. Defensive side, they're pretty young. There's some talent there. I don't think it's not going to be a bad defense by any means. It's going to be a defense, I think, that's kind of mid, just kind of maybe a little bit above average defense, but it should be able to benefit the Dolphins and help them be able to do enough. They're trending in the right direction. I really think the question is, well, this is definitely Tua's last chance. This is Tua's last chance entering his 3rd year to show that he is their guy. And I'm not too confident in him. He's not my cup of tea, but he's got talent around him, so there's no excuse. And he's got a new coach. But I have him at 10 wins. I feel pretty comfortable with that just because the arsenal Tua has around him. I think you're going to see some good production from that offense. They're not going to be a top 10 offense, but I think they'll be an offense that's going to be able to score be able to score some points, be able to handful of opponents, be able to outscore them. But I don't know. Like I think though I have them at 10 and 7, I think that, like I said, they win 8 games, they win 9 games. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some other teams that surpass them. But I think right now going the season, I kind of like them ahead of some others when I kind of look at their teams, look up their matchups, look at what they can do offensively. I think they're going to be pretty creative in what they do offensively. So I don't know. I think it's a wait and see with Tua, really seeing how he does, because really how Tua does is really going to be the direction of the team. But I'm at 10-7 right now. That could obviously change as the season goes on. But I like the roster. I like what they did in the offseason. Their defense, there's really nobody on their defense other than Xavier Howard that stands out or anything like that. But I think it's young guys, and I think you got second year, third year guys where they got to take these leaps, and they have a foundation there with a few of them. But now it's going to come down to, I think, some of these other guys that are going to have to step up and take that leap forward in year 2, year 3. So you got I got Dolphins 10 wins right now. I got the Jets finishing 6-11. As I said with the Jets before, I know that there's some people a little bit higher on them than I am. The Jets did a good job in the offseason. They had a good draft, did a good job strengthening the offensive line. Got some guys on defense. Zach Wilson, it's a big year for him, entering year 2. I think when you look at the landscape of the AFC, the Jets aren't anywhere near, in my opinion, a handful of those teams. And when I looked at the Jets' schedule, I just don't see him competing with a lot of their teams on the schedule, man. I really don't. I think they're doing the right things. They're doing the right things into Zach Wilson's second year, but that's just not just going to happen overnight. That's not just going to happen in 1 year. Now, if all things go right, sure, the Jets can win more than 6 games. But at the end of the day, the Jets having to play Miami twice a year, having to play the Bills twice a year. When you look at, let's look at their schedule. Let's pull up the Jets schedule so I can read it to you guys, and let's look at it. Because I've seen that there's people thinking the Jets are going to win around 8 or 9 games. I don't see that. I don't. They open up against Baltimore. They ain't winning that. They got to play Cincinnati week 3. They play the Steelers week 4. So again, and then like I said, you play 2 against Miami. You play 2 against New England. You play 2 against Buffalo. I don't see the Jets sweeping any of those teams. They got to go to Green Bay. They got to play Denver. They got to play the Vikings. So I think looking at their schedule, I think 6 wins is fair enough to where I have them at. They've done the right things this offseason. They got to continue that moving forward into the future. And, maybe things might start paying off for them. AFC North. I'm finishing with AFC North because obviously I'm a Steeler fan and I want to save the best for last, in my opinion. AFC North. I'm not going to go too much into depth on it because other than it would become a Steelers video. But I got the Bengals winning the division. I do. With the Bengals, I know that history speaks for itself where teams coming off a Super Bowl loss tend to decline. Now, that's not the case all the time. And with the Bengals, I don't think that's going to be the case. They have some of the best talent, I think, offensively that a team could want in the league. Jamar Chase, phenomenal rookie year. Joe Burrow, phenomenal second season. Went in the offseason and signed guys on their offensive line to protect Joe Burrow better because they had one of, if not the worst offensive line last year statistically. Joe Mixon coming off a great season. T. Higgins could be a number 1 guy on a lot of teams. Tyler Boyd's a good slot guy, number 3. Defense, there's some questions on defense, I think. And it's not questions on defense, I think, that's going to hold their defense back or where they're going to be a bottom tier defense. I think their defense is a good enough defense for where their offense is. Their defense is good enough to win games with where their offense is. And we'll wait and see how certain positions on there really kind of head into the season because there's a couple I could kind of be like, but they got to the Super Bowl last year with pretty much almost the same defense as last year. And I think at the end of the day, it's not a great defense, not an elite defense, but they got guys that can play on that. And with how their offense is, their defense can do enough, if that makes sense. But I think it's, I got to give respect and a tip of cap to the Bengals and what they did last year and what they've been building to the last several years is here. And it's going to be here for a while. So this year, I could see them maybe winning 10. I have them at 11. Maybe they could win 12. I don't know. But I had the Bengals winning 11-6. I think that's a comfortable spot for them. Second place, I got Pittsburgh. And I have them in second place. The over-under for them from Vegas this year, if you're going to bet on them, is 7.5. The last time the Steelers finished in last place was 1988. The last time the Steelers had a losing season was 2003. And the Steelers are the type of franchise that is set apart from so many other franchises across sports because their mindset every year, they don't rebuild. They're not a team that rebuilds. They're not a team that's going to freaking tear everything down. And the reason why is because how they function as a team, their mindset, and they're just so good. They're one of the best teams in the league at developing talent, finding star guys. They're not that type of franchise. And as a Steeler fan, I appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that because I have something to look forward to every year, regardless of how great or maybe so-so they are as a team. I'm not doubting Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season his whole career. And I know that that's been a thing that's been talked about, but I'm not doubting Mike Tomlin. The last 3 years, the Steelers have been doubted. 2019, when Big Ben got injured the second game of the season and missed the whole year, they were talked about being a top 5 pick. They finished 8-8. They were at 1 point 8-5 and almost made the playoffs, with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges intermingling at quarterback. And they did have the best defense in the league that year. 2020 had a top 5 defense, and Big Ben was back from his elbow surgery. They were getting doubted again by a lot of people in the media because of Big Ben being done and the questions about his elbow. They were 11-0 and won the division and made the playoffs. Last year, they were overlooked once again. The defense wasn't nearly as good as the last couple years prior to that, but they still won 9 games and made the playoffs. So these last 3 years of the Steelers being doubted, overlooked, things like that, I'm not buying it. Like, I know that there's people out there that have them maybe winning 8 games or something like that or whatever. I think that I have them at 9 right now, and I think that's a fair spot to have them. I could put them at 10. I would not be surprised if they ended up making the playoffs. I would not. And that's the thing. There's other teams in the AFC. This is the thing. The AFC this year is probably the strongest it's been since last I can even remember. Certain teams I don't have making the playoffs, I could see make them. The Titans, the Broncos, the Steelers, the Ravens. That's 4 already right there. So, yes, I have the Steelers at 9-8. I think it's a fair spot to put them at because you look at Mike Tomlin. You look at what he does. He gets the best out of his players consistently. How the Steelers are as a franchise. They're always wanting to win. That's always their mindset. They're always competitive one way or another. Regardless of how great they are as a team in whatever years that is, or whenever maybe they're not as great as certain years or as good as certain years before, they're still always in the mix. They're still always competing, and that's what they're going to do again this year. They're going to be in the mix. They're going to be competitive. They have a defense that can get back to being a top 5 D, which I think they will. They have one of the best young cores offensively in the NFL. The offensive line's obviously a huge question mark and very concerning, but they did this last year with a very similar offensive line. And it's hard for me, as the season continues to go on, it's hard for me to not see them at least grow from last year to this year. I think that we know the quarterback situation is also a question mark as into why there's people maybe not as high on the Steelers as previous years, which I understand because we don't know what we're going to get out of Mitch Trubisky. I said this before. Mitch Trubisky's a guy that He's made the playoffs 2 years with couple years with Chicago, 2 out of 4. He has his limitations, but it wasn't all his fault in Chicago. He's got great coaching now in Pittsburgh. He's got a lot of talent to work with. He's got wheels. He can move around. He's got a great defense on the other side of him. So he's a guy that can win games with his team. He's a guy that can be competitive, that can keep this team afloat. But what I think is going to happen is that Trubisky, it's going to get to a point where he's not doing enough. It's not where he's playing bad, but he's not doing enough. He's not doing enough or getting enough done for where the Steelers see their offense being. And that's when they're going to make the switch to Kenny Pickett, I think, at some point this year. And where he takes them, we'll wait and see. But Kenny Pickett's promising, I think. There's a lot of things to like about him. I'm excited to watch him play. I think that there's a lot of good things that he has shown so far. And the Steelers are doing everything they can to set him up for the best success, and there's no better spot for him than here. But I have him at 9 games right now. Like I said, I think it's a fair spot just considering We're not sure how good Mitch is going to be. We know how good Tomlin is as a coach. We know he gets the best out of his teams. This defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. We know this. Offensively, there's a lot of young talent, but we know that we have to see how quarterback play goes also, because that's also a big factor. We have to see really how the offensive line grows throughout the season also and everything, because that's a big thing too, because Najee Harris needs to run the ball, right? The quarterback needs some time, and this offensive line, and it's not saying that you need this great elite or really good offensive line to be successful in the NFL. You don't, but things get frustrating and things get difficult when your offensive line can't do a single block, can't block anything to save their life. So 9 wins for the Steelers. I have them second place. I don't doubt Mike Tomlin. I never have. I never will. They have a good roster. Obviously, we have to wait and see how quarterback plays out this year going into the season. I think Kenny Pickett will take over at some point, and we'll see where it takes them. But I think the Steelers are a team, even though I have them 9 wins, I think they're a team that can make the playoffs. Sure, absolutely. Third place, I have the Baltimore Ravens. I said this last year, I'll say it again this year. The Ravens are the most overrated team going into the season this year. I don't care what anybody says. And this isn't because I'm a Steeler fan. I respect the Ravens. I respect their franchise. I think they have a great structure. They do a great job drafting guys, developing certain positions. They do really good. I'm not big on them. I'm sorry. I'm not. This is a contract year for Lamar. I know, I understand that, and I think that he's going to do everything he can for their success. My issue with them, and why I don't have them, as a lot of other people do, winning double-digit games or winning the division, is because Lamar's game is strictly off his legs. He is a guy that his legs are a huge part of him as a quarterback. And with where they're at offensively, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not. They did a great job this offseason with their offensive line. Getting from it where it was the last 2 years to where it is now, they did a great job. And I think that it gives them the chance and the opportunity to get back to their roots of running the football, and with that, opening up the field. It really does. They have the worst wide receiver group in the NFL aside from the Chicago Bears. And I would put them below the Chicago Bears, actually, because at least the Bears have Darnell Mooney. Rashad Bateman is their number one wide receiver this year. I think he's a guy that fits in well with how they run their offense. Mark Andrews is a top dog. He's a beast. He's a baller at tight end. But they're relying on a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainty at wide receiver. And this is the opportunity for the Ravens to get the best out of their receivers and develop them, because they have done an awful job for a very long time at developing wide receivers. Aside from Rashad Bateman, you got James Prochet, Devin Duvernay, Tylan Wallace, Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson was with the Chiefs last year, wasn't on the field a lot. He's got a lot of speed. He'll be used, I think, a lot more in the Ravens offense. But I don't think that there's enough there for the Ravens to find success consistently on offense. Lamar's going to use his legs. We know this. With Lamar using his legs, it's going to help open up the field. We know this. This is what he's done his whole career. But this is an awful group of receivers for him to rely on. And when it comes to points in a game where the Ravens are down and need receivers to make plays, are they going to get that? We don't know. I'm not too confident in these receivers stepping up and making this a productive offense. I'm not. Their running backs, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, are solid guys, but they're both coming off a year where they both blew out their knee. So there's no guarantee of them coming back and being productive right away. I think at least one will be productive as the season goes on, but they're a question mark as well in terms of their health. When are they going to be ready? When are they going to be back into the flow of everything? So I'm not big on the Ravens offense this year. I think Lamar is going to have a solid season for what he can. And I think that with them winning 9 games, it's going to show like, hey, I've done everything I can with what you've given me. Mark Andrews is going to do his thing. Rashad Bateman, he's primed to have a nice second year. But I don't think there's going to be enough for when the Ravens are going to have to score points. I don't think there's going to be enough for them to work with. I'm sorry. Defensively, their secondary is loaded. On paper, they have the best secondary in the NFL. They should be able to create a lot of turnovers, which could help their offense as well. I'm not big on their front seven. When people say the Ravens have this great defense, I disagree. They were the worst team in rushing last year. And I don't think their defense is going to be bad this year. I think they're going to be able to create turnovers. They're going to be able to shut guys down in the secondary 100%. But when it comes to guys getting to the quarterback, that's going to hurt their secondary as well. I'm not a big fan of their inside linebacker group. We know they're rotating guys in and out on their edge. They're relying on guys, again, it's like the same thing with receiver. They're relying on guys for their edge rush, their pass rush, their defensive line to step up from year 1 to year 2, from year 2 to year 3. They're relying on those guys. They didn't really do much in the offseason in terms of adding to the front seven. They did the secondary, but to the front seven, they didn't do that. And to me, that's a little concerning. I don't really think it's that great of a group, but this is when the development happens. This is when you're relying on your guys next man up, your guys you already have in-house, which isn't a bad thing. But none of these guys have shown anything really in the NFL other than an Odafe Owe in terms of edge rush. There's Calais Campbell. We know this. There's Pierce that you also have defensive tackle. But a handful of these guys haven't come into their own yet. A handful of these guys, and some of it's lack of opportunity also, but these guys haven't really quite come into their own, and it's going to be on the Ravens to get the best out of these guys. I think the Ravens, they'll be a solid team. I think they're a team also that can find their way in the playoffs. They have an easier schedule. So just because I say that they're winning, in my prediction, I have them winning 9 games. And that's because of my view on the Ravens and where I have them. A lot of people have them winning more because they think that, Lamar being healthy, it's a contract year. They like certain guys on their defense, which absolutely. They have an easier schedule. So yeah, absolutely. I can see where the 10, 11 wins might come from. I don't personally see that right now. I think the AFC North is going to be pretty competitive with all 3 teams. The AFC is better than last year, and I understand the argument. The Ravens were 8-3 last year with all these guys injured, but so many of those wins were as lucky as they came at the same time. So I'm not big on the Ravens. I'm sorry. I'm not. You'll probably disagree with me, a lot of you. That's fine. But that's my view on them. I think they'll be solid. They'll be competitive in the division. They'll be in the race. I just don't quite have them making it in the playoffs right now. And we'll see what happens with Lamar's contract going into week 1, because if they don't get it done, he's going to test for agency, but they'll probably franchise tag him, everything like that. But that's where I have the Ravens at. And to me, I think it's a fair assessment. I think they can win a little bit more than that. I wouldn't be surprised if they're around that come the end of the year. But that's just me. I'm not high on them like others, what others are. And that's the way it is. And then I had the Browns finishing off at 7-10. Obviously, with the Deshaun Watson situation, it probably would be a little bit different. But Jacoby Brissett being your starting quarterback for the first 11 games, I don't see much there. They still have a strong offensive line, strong run game, which will help. But Amari Cooper, aside from Amari Cooper, and Njoku, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Anthony Schwartz's ass, I don't really see a lot of production the first 11 weeks offensively. And even when Deshaun comes back, I don't think things are going to get going right away either. Now, the Browns have a good roster, and they're going in the right direction. They have been going in the right direction. But going into the season with the first 11 games without Deshaun Watson, I don't think they're going to win a lot of games. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with certain teams they're going to be facing. Defensively, they're obviously a lot stronger defensively than they are offensively. But it's just not there. I don't see Jacoby Jones keeping them competitive. I don't see Jacoby Brissett keeping them competitive, or winning a handful of games to set them up for when Deshaun Watson comes back. I don't see it. We know what Jacoby Brissett is. He's just a journeyman quarterback, and he hasn't really done anything in his career. And he's with a team like the Browns. He's just a backup quarterback. That's all he is, and they have him starting. So I don't see a lot there for the first 11 weeks offensively. They'll win some games. I don't see them winning much. And they'll win a few when Deshaun comes back, but even when he comes back to that point, it's going to be too late, a late cause, and it might take some time for Deshaun to get acclimated. Like I said, defensively, they got guys there too and stuff like that. They are going in the right direction, but going the season this year, I think 7-10 is a fair adjustment for where I have them. But that is the AFC division by division breakdown, preview, predictions. Like I said, the NFC is on the channel. If you guys want to check that out, check out the AFC. We obviously went a lot longer on this episode and put a little bit more into it. I know it's approaching an hour on this video, but it is what it is, folks. It is what it is, because I like to rant on and talk on and on about sports, so you guys can always fast forward through it. But I wanted to put that out there. I was excited to do this. I did it last year. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section on my predictions, what you think about them. Let me know yours in the comment section, your thoughts. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? That's the beauty about discussion. But I'm excited. I think that there's a lot to look forward to this season. There's a lot of excitement, I think, with really how things have changed in the offseason with the league. So as a Steeler fan, I'm very excited. It's going to be a different season for me, but it's going to be fun, I think. At the same time, I think there's a handful of things to look forward to. And I think if you're a lot of teams that you're a fan of, I think there's a lot of things to look forward to, be excited about. So football season will be here. Before you know it, best time of year. We cannot wait, but thank you all for your support. And we will see you back. I'm trying to think, tomorrow will be Thursday. So we will see you back on Saturday. I will be back on Saturday breaking down the Steelers. Or no, hold on. I'm trying to think what I want to... I might be back Friday. We'll wait and see. Because like I said before, my schedule going forward is Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. So we might be back Friday, but we will definitely be back Saturday talking about Steelers-Bengals going into Sunday. But thank you all for your support. That's a wrap here on episode 69, part 2. Thank you. Yep. Right as I finished, got to cough it up, right? But thank you all for your support, guys. Have a good rest of your night. God bless, and we will see you back hopefully Friday, but for sure Saturday. Take care, guys.